Oh God, we come before you now. And I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart will be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. You are my rock and my Redeemer. Open us to the message you wish us to receive in your name. Amen. Well, this is a story that I imagine is quite familiar to most of you. I'm always touched by the fact that as these two disciples, even though they are not named as the 12 disciples with whom we are so familiar, we also know that Jesus had many other followers, and obviously here are two of them. And they've been in Jerusalem for Passover over these last days, and Jesus has been killed, and now they are on their way to Emmaus. Jesus joins them on the road. They don't recognize him. He asks them, "What are you talking about?" And I can almost see the smile on his lips, because of course he knows what happened. It's his story. And yet he says to them, "What are you talking about?" And they say, You don't know? Could you be the only stranger in all of Jerusalem who doesn't know what's been going on these past few days? And he says, "What things?" And again, I can see that little smile on his face as he asks them, "What things?" And they begin to tell him. They start telling him everything that's happened about the Passover and about his arrest and his condemnation and his journey up the hill of Calvary and his crucifixion. They tell him all of that. And Jesus hears his own story coming back to him through their voices and how they are talking about it. He can feel their sadness and their disappointment as they say, "We had hoped that he would be the Redeemer of Israel." He can feel that sadness and that disappointment coming out of them to him. And he can feel their confusion as they start telling him about what happened at the tomb that morning. This morning, because this is the same day, this morning some of the women went to the tomb and it was empty, and they came back and told us, including these two, right? Not just the 11, but any of the followers who would have been interested, and I'm sure they would all have been interested. The women came and told us, and some of us went to the tomb, and it was just the way they described it. But we didn't see him. Imagine being Jesus and hearing this. Hearing how the people that you have come to serve and minister to are reacting to what has happened. I'm sure he feels not only their sadness and their confusion, but also their grief at the fact that they do not experience him in the world anymore. And that, of course, causes him to feel grief as well. And he says to them, "Really? Don't you remember what he told you? Don't you remember how he spoke about the prophecies that run all the way through the Hebrew Scriptures that point to the hope of a Messiah? Don't you remember any of that? And he starts reviewing with them how the Scriptures point to the coming of the Messiah. But he still doesn't tell them who he is. And yet there's something so vibrant about what he's saying. There's something so filled with hope and promise and certainty that they are thrilled. Their hearts, as they say later, burn within them. I've had that happen to me a couple of times when I've been particularly open to the ministry of the Holy Spirit. It's just been thrilling. I don't know what else to call it. Their hearts burned within them, but they still don't know who he is. And they get to the turnoff, and they start moving toward the village of Emmaus, and Jesus acts like he's going to go on. And when I thought about this story this week, it seemed to me that's the real turning point in the story. How easy it would have been for them to say, hey, nice walking down the road with you. I'm so glad we met. It was great talking to you. Take care of yourself now. Bye. Better hurry up. It's getting dark. Wherever it is you're going to, we'll pray for you. Yeah. But that's not what they said. The Bible tells us that they urged him strongly. Stay with us. Stay with us. The day is coming to an end. It'll be dark soon. Come with us. Stay with us. But he was still just a stranger. And yet they were extending hospitality and welcome to him. Now I know sometimes you do feel like you've gotten to know somebody when you're having a conversation with them, and they would have been talking for a good 2.5 hours, because that's about how long it takes to walk 7 miles if you're going kind of leisurely like. So they've had 2.5 hours together. But I still find it remarkable that they invited a stranger to come and stay with them. And Jesus does. He accepts their invitation. He goes into the house with them. The table is prepared. He sits down at the table along with them. We're not told how many others there are in the house. There might be others. We don't know. But Jesus is sitting at that table. And he picks up the bread and he breaks it and blesses it and offers it to them. Now, I think that when Luke wrote the gospel, he wanted us, the readers, the hearers, to remember the last time we heard about Jesus sitting at a table. When was it? What was happening? You know the answer. You've taught this. The Last Supper, sure. The Last Supper had happened a few days before the crucifixion and the day of burial and all that. Luke wants us to remember that. When he's talking about this supper, we might think of this as the first supper. The first supper that the disciples celebrated in the days of resurrection. The first supper. I think Luke wants us to remember what happened at that Last Supper, in which even though Jesus was sitting with the very ones who were going to betray him and deny him and leave him and fall asleep on all of that was going to happen, Jesus still broke the bread, blessed it, and gave it to them. And I think Luke wants us to remember that the way Luke is telling this story, he is tying together the Last Supper and the First Supper, in which Jesus, the risen Jesus, takes the bread, blesses it, breaks it, and offers it to them. I like thinking that in the Last Supper, Jesus is definitely the host. Wouldn't you call him the host? He's kind of in charge, right? Even though he tells them, go in the city and find this and make sure that my room is ready for me, and but he's telling them what to do. He's in charge. But when he gets to their house, he's the guest. They've invited him. And he doesn't become the host until that moment when he picks up the bread, blesses it, breaks it, and offers it. And I would like to think that that's how we should feel every time we sit down to eat. That Jesus is at the table with us. And that he is both our guest and our host. Like most of the stories in the Bible, this is a story that has so many different messages in it. It's a message of reassurance. It's a message of preparation. But the message that kept spinning in my heart this week was the message of hospitality. When the disciples said, "Stay with us," and when Jesus said, "This is for you." How magnificent. It also occurred to me that welcome is the theme of the United Methodist Women this year, is it not? Welcome! Welcome! Stay with us! You're welcome. Come on in! You're welcome. We'd love to have you! You're welcome. Welcoming the stranger. But we're often taught to be afraid of strangers, aren't we? I mean, haven't we heard about stranger danger? Heard about stranger danger. So what do we do with that? Caution. We remember that Jesus also told us, be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Don't be stupid. But I think he also definitely does not want us to just class a whole bunch of people with a label and think that they're dangerous. All strangers are not dangerous. Most of them aren't. So you have to, keep your serpent system alive. So that you can, is this somebody who's going to step on me or not? Isn't that what the serpents are listening for? Is this somebody who's going to step on me? Is this somebody who's going to stick that fork around my neck? And they get ready. Wise as serpents. My sister, my dear darling sister, and I'm sure you run into some of this at times, Melanie. No, that's one. My sister just this morning got back to Hong Kong from Nepal. She's been hiking for the past 12 days in the Himalayan mountains. And there was no connection in the past 12 days with her. And I know what she's been doing. She's been meeting strangers. She's been meeting strangers right and left. And when you travel, that's really an amazing time for meeting strangers. Many of you know that. There's something even mysterious and wonderful about the people you meet when you're traveling. My sister amazes me. I mean, she'll tell me things like, well, when I was at the Great Wall of China, I met this really interesting young man. He was about 28 years old. She's 64. And I told him, well, you know, if you come to Hong Kong, you can stay in my apartment. What? What? Well, he did show up in Hong Kong, and he did stay in her apartment. And it turned out that he knew all about making videos, and she needed a video done in order to apply for a job, and he helped her put the video together, and then he went off to the Philippines. That's the way my sister operates. She just prays. She lets her spiritual antenna go out so that she can tell, is this somebody that is being put in my path so that we can bless each other? Or is this somebody that I need to avoid? And you know darn well that sometimes the people we need to be afraid of are living in our own houses. We know that, right? There are people who are in our own families. They're our neighbors. So we can't just go around saying, well, we got to be careful of strangers. All strangers are dangerous. No. Some strangers are dangerous. Some pastors are dangerous. Right? Some teachers are dangerous. Some governors are dangerous. I'm not allowed to talk politics, but y'all started responding to that now, Dan. And yet, the bottom line is welcome, stranger. Welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you. And don't you love the idea that we all arrive as strangers? I mean, think about that. When a new baby is born, do you know that kid? Huh? You don't know diddly about that kid, except whether it's a male or a female, has a lot of hair, or whether or not it's healthy or has health problems. That's all you know. It takes you a while to figure out who the kid even looks like. I love that we show up as strangers. We enter families as strangers. We don't know who that man is that's calling himself our daddy. Who is that person? and who is that lady person that keeps hugging me and boo-boo-boo? I don't know her. We show up as strangers. There's something wonderful about that. And we welcome each other as strangers. A friend you haven't met yet. Amen.